Earlier this week, I was down at AI Tour in Sydney, which is Microsoft's convention focused on AI, and there were a ton of incredible companies there. I went and talked to people that work at NVIDIA, ClickHouse, Oracle, DocuSign, chatted to the people at GitHub and VS Code. It's incredible to see that a company such as Microsoft, which has been around for so long, the amount of focus that they are putting on AI and specifically how they're integrating it throughout all of their products that have existed for so long. The standout piece for me at the event was the keynote from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. He went through Work IQ, Fabric IQ, the security that they're focused on, Agent 365. There was just a ton of information dropped throughout his keynote, and there was also some pieces where some other people came out on stage and they talked us through some of the agentic workflows that are possible with these Microsoft products. I used Copilot back in the day when it first came out, when it was just simple one-line suggestions. And from using it back then to seeing what it's capable of now, it's just an incredible development. The main piece that stood out for me was when Satya went over this thing called Work IQ. And he said something about the most important data in a company is the data that does not exist inside of a typical database. And that is communication and relationships between people within the organization and the work that they do. Now, after he mentioned this, someone came out from GitHub and went through a technical example of how this works in practice. And I want to go through that with you today so that you can understand the importance of how Work IQ can revolutionize the developer workflow. I'm a visual learner, so I've created this little flowchart to show you exactly how the three layers, data, memory, and inference work with Work IQ, and then we'll go into how that can work for a developer and actually building out features. So first thing is the data layer is where that all of this information is ingested from your Microsoft 365 products. This includes emails, team chats, meetings, files, you name it. And the key point of this is that it's not just a keyword search. So when you're searching for this data, it's semantically indexed. So if you search for something and say, what did the team decide about pricing? It can find that answer based on the intent of your question, even if somebody didn't type pricing or any of the exact words that you used. The second part of this is memory, and this is a bit of a standout for me. Now, the interesting part of this is it builds memory on how you work within your organization. So you've got typically on like a website or something, you'll have an org chart that shows who's in charge of who and who reports to who. A work chart is dynamic and actually takes note of who you work with and how you collaborate with those people. It also remembers your personal preferences and working style and your team dynamic. So you can think about this as the org chart is what your HR department thinks your company looks like, whereas the work chart is what your company actually is like. And the third part of this is inference. The inference layer will link up the casual mention of a Friday deadline with the formal project plan that's actually sitting somewhere in something like a SharePoint. It can identify the commitments that other people have made, it understands the relationship between documents, and it can infer the intent of the conversations that we mentioned earlier. So I've created this little flowchart to show exactly how it would work in practice to use Work IQ MCP in your development workflow. So the first step obviously is to boot up your CLI and start up GitHub Copilot. From there, you would give it a simple prompt, something like find the email from Sarah about the auth feature and the related GitHub issue. From there, you would be able to call both of the MCPs that are relevant to this feature. So first we'll talk about Work IQ MCPs. So this would mean that the agent would go and it would search your Outlook email. It would find the email from Sarah about the auth and extract the requirements for that feature. Now, at the same time, you might have more context around this feature in a GitHub issue. So then you can call the GitHub MCP, find the related issue, pull the context and any of the other related comments and labels throughout that issue. This happens in parallel, so both of these agents are working at once. From there, you would be able to invoke a coding agent inside of GitHub to actually start implementing the feature with the full context from the WorkIQ Outlook MCP and from the GitHub issue that you called as well. Now, the exciting part of this is that you can have a cloud agent as well, which will review, comment, and even implement the fixes so that you are completely using agents and these two MCPs to go from information in the email, the information in the issue, and then combining both of those pieces of context, building the feature, and having it completely implemented from start to finish. So that's WorkIQ. Essentially what Microsoft is saying is the model is only half of the race. The other half is the context about you, your organization, the work you do, how you work with others. And if you're building on the Microsoft stack, this changes how you can think about agents entirely. I've dropped a bunch of resources in the description below so that you can go and learn about all of the things that Microsoft are doing in AI, play around with their MCPs, work with Copilot, and just have a lot of fun.